What is going on, guys? My name is Kenji and welcome back to the channel. Hopefully it's not the first time you're watching one of my videos, but just in case it is, I'm a final year medical student and a biomedical science graduate studying King's College London. And guys, to be completely honest with you, over the last 8 years of being in university and also as a medical student right now, procrastination is the number one thing that I have to fight and get through. And after being in university for such a long time, I've actually developed a system that has allowed me to not procrastinate as much as I normally would have. So in this video, I'm taking you guys through 6 key tips that I suggest you guys try out in order to beat procrastination once and for all. So sit back, relax, and let's go ahead and get started. So the first tip I have for you guys to beat procrastination is to try and increase the amount of friction it actually takes you to do the actual thing that you waste a lot of time on. So you really kind of have to know yourself in the situation. Maybe you procrastinate on your phone a lot, maybe it's on your Xbox, but basically try and increase the amount of friction using whatever means possible to stop you from actually procrastinating. So a few key examples from my life is that my phone is such a distraction during revision period. So what I actually do during revision period is to delete TikTok, Instagram, and pretty much all the social media apps on my phone. And I'm not telling myself that I can't use this during that time, but what I am saying to myself is that if I want to go on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, it actually takes me a long time because I have to go back to the app store on my phone, download Instagram, and sign in again. And that small amount of friction it takes to actually access Instagram really stops me from being bothered to actually go on my phone. So that's just one key example that I use in my life to stop friction. But literally, no matter what it takes, maybe you like playing Xbox games, plug your Xbox out, put it in a different room, and that amount of friction it takes for you to actually go ahead and get started on the thing that you normally waste time on will hopefully stop you from actually procrastinating. And that's what I'd recommend to manage the bad habits that you have to do with procrastination. In terms of the actual good habits that you want to build, try and reduce the amount of friction it takes to actually start doing that activity. So for example, one thing that I really enjoy doing is reading on my Kindle. So reading is something I want to actually get more into, and it's kind of an activity that I'm trying to do a lot more. So my Kindle is always by my bedside. So whenever I'm in bed or maybe I'm taking a break from studying on the table, rather than going on Instagram, I'll actually just reach over to the Kindle, which is the habit that I'm trying to build. And hopefully by reducing the friction for the things that I want to actually do more of, I'll be able to actually build that habit of doing the thing that I want to do and removing the habit from the things that I don't want to do. So that's the first tip I have for you guys. Try and increase the amount of friction it takes for you to actually do the activities you're trying to avoid and reduce the amount of friction for the activities that you're trying to actually establish. Let's move on to the second tip. Now, the second tip, which has absolutely changed the game for me, is to try your best to study in public. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, being a waste man in public is way harder than when you're actually in a public place like a library. Now, if I'm actually in my room and I want to take a break and watch Netflix and eat donuts, like that's so easy. No one's actually watching me. But if I'm in the library and I'm surrounded by 100 people who are also working, probably a lot of people who are also on my course, then sitting down watching Netflix for 1 hour is just way harder because I'm in a public place. So just knowing that I'm in an environment where everyone around me is working, not only do I feel ashamed to just like bring out Netflix and watch for an hour or two, but it's also the energy that I take off of other people. If I feel like other people around me are focused and are working and not taking too many breaks, then being in that environment can really help me actually continue working. Energy is really contagious. So if you're surrounded by people who are giving you that positive energy working, that can also contribute to your productivity. And as well as just being in an environment where watching Netflix for 2 or 3 hours is much harder. So whenever I feel like I need that added bit of a push, that added bit of kind of pressure to work, and I feel like I'm just getting into a bit of a procrastination slump at home, what I'll do is grab my laptop, grab my iPad, put it in my backpack, and make the way to a public place, which is often a library. But if you don't have a library near you, then a Costa coffee or just a normal coffee shop as well can also work. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who's done this, where I decide to take a 5-minute break from my work, I leave my desk, lie on my bed, and the planned 5 or 10-minute break automatically turns into 3 hours, and I look at the clock and I'm like, oh my god, 3 hours have passed and I've done nothing but actually just lie on my bed. Now, the way that I actually avoid getting into these long periods of procrastination is make sure that I time my work, but most importantly, time my breaks as well. So even when you're on a lunch break or just a quick break from your work, it's super important to make sure that you put an actual timer on your phone and make sure that the alarm is on so that you don't find yourself procrastinating for 1 hour and time just flies by. The way that I actually time myself when I'm working on my laptop is using an app called Tomato, and that allows me to use a Pomodoro timer to time my actual working hours and also the breaks that I have in between each session. And the best thing, like I said, is that it actually rings when my break time is over, so I know that I need to get back to work. And the really good thing using the app is that I can look back at the end of a day and see exactly how much time I spent working and exactly how much time I spent procrastinating, which is a super useful tool to make sure that I'm not subconsciously and accidentally taking too many and too long breaks, and therefore stopping me from procrastinating as a whole. So whenever I find myself scrolling on Instagram for like 20 minutes or playing Xbox task or doing something that I know is just obvious and blatant procrastination, I try and ask myself this one question, which is this actually what I want to be doing right now? And if the time is 8 or 9 p.m. and the answer is yes, like this is genuinely what I want to be doing right now, then fair enough, I'll continue scrolling on my phone. But actually 9 times out of 10, what I do find is that if I ask myself that question, is this actually what I want to be doing right now, scrolling through Instagram when I know I have an exam in 2 days time, 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. And just by asking myself that one question, I immediately become conscious of what I'm doing, conscious of my decisions, and then I'll tell myself, okay, I'm gonna have 2 more minutes scrolling through Instagram on my phone, and I'll make sure that I get back to work. So if you find yourself procrastinating a lot, I highly recommend you ask yourself that one question. Is this actually what you want to be doing right now? And hopefully by asking yourself that question and becoming conscious of what you're doing, you'll actually be able to stop procrastinating and get back to work as soon as you possibly can. Now, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but oftentimes when we procrastinate, it's not actually because we have nothing to do. It's also because we have too much to do. I've actually noticed that the times I actually procrastinate the most is when I have too much things to do on my to-do list and I actually kind of feel overwhelmed to start and I don't actually know where to get started on that to-do list. So what I'd recommend is to continue writing down your normal to-do list. So, still by all means write down the 10 list of things that you want to get done today. But once you've actually completed the to-do list, what I'd recommend is actually highlighting 2, maybe maximum 3 things in your whole entire list. That to me automatically becomes my highlight of the day. And I tell myself that if I get these 2 or 3 things done today, these are the biggest, most important things that I need to get done that day. If I get those things done, then I'll tell myself that actually once those things are done, I can actually relax and I can be happy with the amount of done in that day. What normally happens once I get my highlights of the day done is that I actually feel like I have the energy and the motivation to keep going and to get the rest of the things on my to-do list done. So just simply by using that trick, by telling myself, these are the 2 highlights of the day that I really need to get done, and these are the big kind of heavy lifts to do that day. By getting those things done, I automatically feel much better, and that is a really important trick that I have for you guys, so I highly recommend you guys try that out as well. And the final tip that I have for you guys is kind of related to the last point, but also slightly different. Whenever I find myself procrastinating, the reason for that is because I just feel way too overwhelmed to start, and I kind of feel like a task is kind of too large to start, and I don't know where to actually begin getting that task done. And if you ever feel like this as well, my advice would be to take that task that you're trying to do and trying to get done and break it down into smaller, more manageable steps. And what that will do is it will actually reduce the activation energy required to actually get started, because your brain will know exactly what it needs to get done in smaller, more manageable chunks, and hopefully that will help you. So for example, rather than saying start revising for my upcoming exam, what I'll do is I'll break that down into 4 or 5 different points. The first point might be make a revision timetable for the upcoming exam. The second point might be to try and get all of the resources necessary to actually start revising and preparing. The third point might be scope the subject first, so maybe get a whole list of all the lectures that I actually need to cover. The fourth point might be to actually gather all of my notes that I need to start revising. And the fifth and final point might be to actually start revising those notes in preparation for the exam. So again, rather than having a one big chunk task to do, which is revise for the exam, which is actually quite vague as well, breaking such a big task into small, more manageable topics will increase the likelihood of you actually getting those tasks done, because they seem a lot more manageable and, more importantly, less scary to actually start. Now, the next and final tip that I have for you guys is if you actually feel like you need to take a break and you kind of want to procrastinate a little bit, that's completely fine. But rather than watching Netflix, what I do is to try my best to actually use that procrastination time to actually get stuff done, or maybe even learn a new skill. So for example, if I want to take a 15-minute break from my work, rather than sitting on my bed watching YouTube or Netflix, I'll actually watch Skillshare, who are also kindly sponsoring this video. If you guys haven't heard of Skillshare before, they're essentially an online learning platform and community for learning new skills. They honestly have tons of classes on there, from painting, from arts and craft, from video making, to studying for exams. Literally any skill that you might possibly want to learn, Skillshare has a class for. I actually love Skillshare so much that I even made my own classes on there, which you can watch entirely for free. The first class I have on Skillshare is all about how to write a first-class essay. So if you're in school or in university and you're really trying to get better at writing essays, this entire masterclass that I have on there will teach you everything you need to know about how to write a first-class essay. The second class that I have on Skillshare is all about how to get into medical school. So if you're also applying to medical school and you want to become a doctor as well, I have a complete and comprehensive course on Skillshare that will take you from, actually making the application all the way to getting your place in medical school at the medical school that you actually want to go to. And if I had to recommend a single class on Skillshare other than my own classes, I would highly recommend you guys check out How to Actually Study for Exams by Ali Abdel. The reason why I really like this class is that back when I was studying for my medical school exams, particularly in my earlier years, I really wanted a scientific evidence-based approach to studying for exams. And this class taught me new ways of actually studying for exams, like using Anki flashcards. And if you guys want to check out that class as well as my own classes on Skillshare, then you can get an entire month completely for free by clicking the link down below. If you don't like it and you change your mind, you can cancel the free trial. And if you decide that it actually brings a lot of value to your life, as it has for mine as well, then you can go ahead and sign up for the full membership as well. And that is pretty much all the tips that I have for you guys on stopping to procrastinate. I hope it adds a little bit of value to your life and helps revising for your exams a bit easier by stopping procrastination once and for all. If you guys actually liked the video, then here are another bunch of videos that I've made previously on my channel that you guys can check out. Please also make sure to leave a comment, a like down below. Make sure you're subscribed as well with notifications on, and I'll see you guys in the next video.